But for those of you who've not met me before, my name's River, and I have the rather grand title of Director of Studies at the School of Celebrancy. I'm sure you'll have seen the subject for tonight's talk, and I know that people who come to these broadcasts come from different links bring you here. And I know some of the people that come along are School of Celebrancy students like Simone, and some are members of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And just to explain to anybody who doesn't know, that the School of Celebrancy is part of OBOD, which is the nickname, the short name, the acronym for the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. So my little strapline that I like to bandy about is School of Celebrancy, nature inspired, but not just for Druids. Hello, Carol from Storrington, good to see you. And we are going to be speaking this evening about children's ceremonies and doing ceremony with children. And I'm very excited to introduce to you very soon my very dear friend, Anna Richardson, who is one of the authors of this lovely book, the Children's Forest book, which is a real treasure trove of songs and stories and wild foods and crafts and things to do with children to celebrate the passings of the seasons. And just by chance, I know that it's also gone out around the world with the Touchstone OBOD newsletter today as well, a little link to that wonderful book. So if you got the link and you're looking at this, you're watching this video, joining us now or watching later on, then you're about to meet Anna, who's one of the authors, along with Dawn, Casey and Helen Descoli of that book. And Anna is also, I would say Anna was the initiator of a very exciting movement called the Children's Forests Movement. And we as School of Celebrancy are very excited to announce that we are going to be, we've already been, supporters of this movement from the beginning, but we're going to become official supporters as of this month. So a certain proportion of all the fees that come in for our courses will go to support the wonderful work of Children's Forests. What is Children's Forests all about? Well, you're about to find out as I invite Anna to join us. I'm going to bring her in now. Hello, Anna.
Hello. Lovely to be
and
here.
Would you like to tell our assembled guests where you are and how the weather is in your part of the world today?
I would love to. I'm in Forest Row, and this is a village that's near East Grinstead. We're north of Lewes. We're right by the Ashdown Forest, which is the home of Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and very lucky to spend a lot of my time in the forest, mostly with young people. So, yeah.
That's lovely. Carol has said that she bought the book for her daughter to inspire her children. And Elisa has asked what the book is called again. It's called The Children's Forest, Elisa. And I'll post a little link to it in this on the page after this chat. So, Anna, I'm going to go straight in at the deep end with you. And ask you to tell us what is, so we've got the Children's Forest book that I've just talked about, but there's Children's Forests, the movement. And can you tell us, as briefly as you can, I suppose, really, what that movement is and how come ceremony with children is a part of it?
Okay, I shall try to do my best to make clear and in a nutshell, I like to say. So the Children's Forest is a project that we are helping to initiate for children all over the world to to plant forests for the future generations. So it's called the Children's Forest, but it's also for the children of all the species. So it's for the children of the squirrels and the deer, and the children of the trees as well. So for the future generations. So forests of the future that are planted by children with the support of their communities. And within the process, we've kind of developed the process, or the journey we call it, through years of working with children, that we really see that rather than just putting trees in the ground, there's so much more connection, meaning and richness in the development of the children's relationship with nature and forests before we plant. So that's step one of the journey. We go to the forest, we spend lots of time with the trees, we eat their nuts and berries and sit around the fire and have time and ceremony within the forest. And that's really important as part of the journey. Then also they're able, when we get to step two, to imagine forests of the future, because they've been spending time in the forest. They know what a forest feels like. They have the forest in a way living inside them. So then we envision, we go to the place where we're going to plant the trees, and the children get a chance to envision how it might be in a few hundred years' time, and imagine the clean waters and all the animals that might live there, and then create through their imaginary journeys, really, some artwork and poetry, and we bring that bit in. So in a sense, that's part of the ceremony. And the third step is the planting itself of the forests. And that part, we, first of all, when we go to the place where we're going to plant, we light a fire, we create a fire circle. And that fire is the children's fire. So we light it in quite a ceremonial way with the children, and we explain how the children's fire is actually, it's an ancient pledge. So in times gone by, and this does come from a Native American tradition, actually, that we pledge that whenever we light the fire and have a council round the fire, that we put the children of all the future generations at the heart of all our decisions and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So that fire is at the very center before we even plant. And then we plant the first trees in a circle, like a grove, a sacred grove around that fire circle. And before we plant, we have a little moment around that fire where the children think about what their wish or their wishes are for the future generations. And then we give them each a little scroll, and how we've done this in the past is with a bit of birch bark, and they get to actually have a moment to write their wishes. So I guess one could say that in ceremony, there are certain ingredients to a ceremony, and ceremony often has this moment of prayer or intention. So rather than calling it prayer or intention with the children, we call it wishes, but it really is a prayer or intention. So they write this down, and then we all share around the fire. They roll them up, and we make this little bundle of magical scrolls, and then the children go and they plant their trees. So when they plant their trees, they also plant their little scroll with their wish. And
wow.
and then from there we plant the rest of the forest. So that around that central fire is the intentional ceremonial planting. And when we've had that day of planting the trees with the children, we come back round the fire and we bless the forest. So actually we have used a beautiful Druid blessing with the children and sing a song to the trees and ask for the fair winds and the rains to come, and bless that forest with good life to come. And that planting of the forest then is really the beginning of what we hope will be a long relationship of tending those trees. So the commitment of the Children's Forest is to to not only plant trees, but also for the children to go back year after year and watch those trees grow, to look after them, to create habitats for animals to come and live there, bird boxes and all sorts of things. So they actually get to participate in becoming, I don't know what you might call it. We can't quite come onto the right term, but stewards or caretakers of the earth, guardians, tenders of the earth. So that is really planting. The ceremonial planting is about establishing then what we hope will be an ongoing relationship.
Oh, I like the word tenders, because it just made me think of tender green shoots as well, and they're
we call that phase the tending of the forests. So and actually every time we go back then to that place where we've planted, we light the fire again and remember remember why we're doing it, for a time when we, beyond our own lifetimes. So we're also getting the children used to this idea of living in a way that will benefit life beyond our own lifetime, but in a practical way through this forest planting.
Oh, thank you for that, Anna. That was lovely. I know some people joined us, some more people joined us while you were speaking there. So I'd love to invite you, more people, if you haven't already, to just to say hi and let us know where you are. And I've got a few questions for Anna, but if any of you have questions during the conversation as well, you can type them in to the chat box and I'll bring them into the conversation as much as I'm able to. Sorry, I'm leaning out of shot there. So yeah, Anna, you were talking about some of the kind of fundamental parts of that we'd be familiar with of ceremony, that of expressing intent, and does the ceremony happen and you said it is in a circle, so you kind of go around the circle of children, and I'm wondering about some practical things as well, like the sort of how many children might be taking part in this kind of ceremony, and what sort of ages might they be, and how do these groups of children come together?
So far, since we've initiated the project, we've only actually planted 3. Well, no, we have planted 3 children's forests. So, it's early days and we've got lots coming this autumn, and the ones we've got this autumn have quite a wide age range. So I'll talk to you a bit more about that, but I don't have the direct experience yet. So currently, the 3 plantings and the 3 groups of children that we've worked with have been between the age of 7 and 12. And in each of those plantings, we've also invited keen and interested teenagers who wanted to come and help support that as well, because actually that having different ages feels really important. And it's varied from, let me see, I think 16 children, to, I think the last one we did was more like 25 children. So we had more adult ratio with that many. So that's, averagely we're working with that kind of number. But some of their children's forests that will be planted this autumn will be, like, one of them is a home education group with 6 children that are going to plant an area and set up a children's forest. So the planting will then go on over the years and probably more children will join. And we're doing a children's forest with a nursery group, which is lovely. So that's preschool.
Wow.
So in fact, we're going to go through all the different journeys and take them out and spend time in the forest first and do some crafting and imagining and everything. But the actual planting day, we're inviting the children to bring family, which might be grandparents as well. So we'll have an intergenerational kind of planting. Some of the ones coming up also are community children's forests. So we're having families coming to go through the whole process, and those families will then return to the land together with their children, and that's a mixed age range. And then we're hoping to do a teenage camp as well, which will be more of a kind of, we'll weave in, if you like, what was I going to say about that? More like survival skills. They'll be camping out in the winter. It'll be slightly more edgy. You know, and we'll have this element of ceremony. So in each case, the kind of age group of children that we're working with will take quite a different approach, if you know what I mean, in terms of how to actually run those ceremonies.
And so you mentioned that the making of their scrolls. Sorry, there's a door slamming in the background as some people just enter the house. So sorry about any background noises. Highly professional home broadcasting here. Yeah, you mentioned that the writing on the scrolls kind of forms a part of the ceremony. I'm just wondering, at what point do you indeed at any point introduce the children to the idea that it's a ceremony? I'm wondering, you know, if it's sort of familiar to, is it just a process that you just do and you identify the ceremonial elements of it, or is it something that's presented as a ceremony? And I suppose along with that question, so I'm a bit bad for giving people multiple questions, but along with that question, I'm wondering, does it ever come up, you know, the issue of, do the children have to believe in anything or share beliefs or not beliefs, or what's the...
So the way, I mean, I can only answer it from my perspective, because I think colleagues I work with, everybody has their own way of approaching it. And because I work as a forest school teacher, and throughout the year, at all the kind of main festival times, we create simple ceremony with children to mark those solstices and the equinoxes, you know, and the Beltane, all those different ones. And we create simple ceremony with them that that really relate very much to what they can see going on in the forest, and, you know, to make it really tangible for them. So it feels, I hope, really, really natural to be engaging in what we'll call ceremony. But I don't necessarily know if I actually use that word or not with them. It's like, this is what we're doing today. This is a special day. And to mark the specialness of this, we're going to, you know, do this. And it depends on the age. I mean, I think working with younger ones, it's a lot more natural, it feels, to just flow into an activity without a lot of explaining, because they're just so in the imaginary world already and the magic of it all. We actually just invite them to come and sit quietly by the fire for a moment, or we just invite them, and there's not a lot of explaining, and now we're going to, you know, make a wish for the earth or whatever it might be. Now with older children, you might explain more why you're doing that. In which case one might introduce the idea of ceremony in a more direct way. That's a really interesting question. It's interesting. I guess it feels mostly like the children I've worked with are very used to it, because we spend time in the forest and do things in quite a ceremonial way anyway. And actually really was contemplating just in that moment of you saying it, that a lot of things that we do that are repetitive or have a form and have a respectful form, like, for example, how we light the fire when we come to the forest, we do it in a very special way with them, and we do that every time. So it's like that is a ceremony, but we do it every time. We carefully gather our sticks, we carefully make our nest of tinder, We carefully blow, and everybody puts their breath in, and then we sing a song to welcome the fire. So that kind of relationship of sacredness with the elements becomes part of the experience of being in nature. Does that answer the question? Maybe not.
Absolutely, in such a beautiful way. I just loved hearing that, and I just think that was so beautiful how you just that ritual. I think ritual is a sort of looser word, isn't it? Ceremony maybe sounds a bit more kind of grand, and you've got to put your best clothes on for a ceremony or something. But ritual is where you do things in your familiar way, and there's a sort of form and a structure for that. And I'm just thinking about, I'm thinking aloud here really now, but about the relation, the interrelationship between ritual and ceremony, and when does ritual become ceremony? And perhaps it is when there's that express shared intent that is stated, that everyone is doing this ritual with this shared purpose. I never thought of it like that before, Anna. So that's quite an exciting inspiration. Does that make sense to you?
No, absolutely. It is. It feels like it's about coming together in a unified way.
Yeah.
We hear and support each other's intent, actually, or wishes, or by that shared participation in that activity. With a kind of it has a certain quality, doesn't it, of respect, and it's a more focused feeling than the wild play that they might have just been in the case of children, where we're asking them to come in and focus their energy, and that focus of energy, whether it's planting a tree with a wish, or lighting a fire, or blessing some water, or thanking the weather, or whatever it might be, that there's a certain feeling in that moment of relating to the world in a connected and grateful way, or a way of
relating to the world with love and gratitude and connection, and it just sounds very, very grounded and organic, this way of working.
I think it feels more authentic for children. In my experience, children are like radars, incredible antennae for anything inauthentic. They don't like it. So they have a sense for it. So it really has to kind of, I know myself, if I'm going to hold a particular kind of celebration. Actually, I might more often call it a celebration than a ceremony with children now. I know to think of it. That if I'm going to hold something like that with the children, it has to really be coming out of me in a natural way, and has to be, something that's coming just really in a grounded way, and be inspired by what is present in the land at that moment in the season, and often we might create that together. I was thinking actually quite often we create a little altar in those moments of doing ceremonies in nature, although we don't necessarily do that with the children's forest, because actually the whole thing is a sacred grove. So but it's that there is a feeling of creating a moment of really understanding that we are in a kind of, I feel like saying temple, but a sacred space.
A sacred space.
Yeah.
And how do you find in general that, I mean, you have said a bit about this, but that children respond to this? I mean, I guess, some people might be thinking of their experiences of, doing things with children, or, organising things with children, even like organising a children's birthday party, for example, and how, do you find that there's ever any kind of resistance from the children to taking part in this, or yeah.
I was just going to say never, but I'm only joking, of course. I mean, you know, children are you know, all different characters.
Yeah.
And you know, so far with the children's forest, I've got to say we haven't had that experience. But of course, you know, working with children, sometimes, you know, they are more or less into it.
Yeah.
And especially some of them, but they'll tend to be the same ones who would be a bit resistant to being quiet at story time, or
Yeah.
you know, being respectful about how to whittle a stick, or you know, so you know who they are anyway. And you know,
Yeah.
and there's adults who are like that, aren't they? We all have a little, probably relate to having a bit of a rebellious streak, or know people who don't really like to push the boundaries a bit. So I mean, it is early days with the children's forest, but over the years I've worked with many different children of different backgrounds, and usually I, if anything, have been very surprised about how creating a kind of sacred space in the forest, you know, and having a special moment, a lot of them just relax into it. And I think it's very, very natural.
Yeah.
To just be in those special spaces.
Yeah. Do you know, I really find that in my work as a celebrant, you know, doing things like weddings, you know, I often encounter, you know, a little bit of anxiety about, you know, how will the children behave in, you know, how will they manage, you know, in the wedding. And I say to people, I think there's something that happens where children just instinctively recognise when, you know, it's a bit of a special place and time, and everyone around them is behaving differently. And yeah, they usually just slip into that quite naturally. I certainly find that too, you know. I've just had a couple of comments come in. Karen has said that she's an end-of-life doula for animals and thinks this would be a wonderful way for children and adults to plant memorials for their beloved pets.
Oh, I think it would be beautiful.
So
I mean, I've actually, we have had a discussion that it would be wonderful to have children's forests that could be community spaces for that, so that children could actually come, well, and the community could come and have ceremony to you know, plant a tree for their cat, and or you know, how could we do that? I think it's a really beautiful and important thing to bring in.
Children's forest stroke pet cemetery.
Yeah, it'd be beautiful. It would be so beautiful.
Well, I'm just thinking, it kind of makes sense, because I'm just thinking about, beautiful Clayton Woods, and there are many other places like that. Clayton Woods is our local natural burial ground, and of course many of these beautiful natural burial grounds, it's come around the other way around, but they're going to be really special forests, aren't they? Places where there's been so much love gone into the creation of them.
Absolutely. And I think that as I see it, I was just thinking it might be nice, River, to share a link of the little film that we've got of the planting, because there's anyway an aerial shot at the end of the design that we have for the beginning of any children's forest is around the fire, as I was talking about. And then that first grove is planted with wishes for the future generations. And then there's many trees that go out from there. And it feels to me that it offers itself really for that reason, to like ongoing ceremony, that woodland can be a place where people come, the children come do ceremony for special events or community events.
Yeah.
You know, feels like that would be very important. So to come and do a
Yeah.
funeral for your pet there would be so special. It's
So
beautiful.
they're all little sacred groves, really. These
Mm.
forests, in a sense. Yeah.
And actually, that part of the vision came through one of the children. So we were gathering. Um, Part of the project is that we gather the tree seeds from the forests where we go and do our forest time, and we find in the autumn we go and gather the acorns from the oaks that we know, and the hawthorn berries from the hawthorn that we know, and the hazel that we've gathered the nuts from, and then we plant those seeds. And so we'd been having a day doing our seed planting, and then as we were going home along the path, one of the boys was talking to me about it. He said, "Anna, I think we need to plant these trees as a sacred grove." You know,
How
not
old
quite.
was this
Oh
child?
yeah, yeah. How old did you
Yeah.
say? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
was like, absolutely, you're right. Of course we do. That makes so much sense. So actually, that sacred grove, those first trees that are planted around, and so far how we've done it as well is that we have planted oaks at the sentinel directions, and we've brought in as many of the different species in that first couple of rings, so that it
Yeah.
actually is a sacred grove. And that really came from his inspiration,
Yeah.
and also I guess his feeling that that's what it needs to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that we have a place to gather where um, which has a significance, and the part of the connection is the children. So this project has emerged from out of the forest school movement. So the
Yeah.
forest school movement really is I'm sure many of you who are listening will know already about the forest school movement, but which is a fantastic and wonderful thing that it's now very much mainstream for children to go and have time in groups in the forest on a regular basis and develop that connection relationship. And one of the foundational things that happens in that space of the forest school is having a fire in the woods to gather around.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a really significant part of the time that we have together. And it creates this kind of heart where we come together for story, celebration, crafting, and then there's a lot of play that goes on, and then coming back to the fire for certain things. So when we create the fire circle in the newly planted forest, it actually mirrors the fire in the forest that the children are used to being at. So it helps them to be able to imagine one day that the fire that we're in round in the children's forest will one day be a fire in a forest like the one
Yes.
they're used to. So it's helping them with
Yeah.
imagining the future
Yeah.
generations. And
Which leads me on really perfectly to the next question that I wanted to ask you, Anna, which is, I suppose, really about the deeper sort of intent behind this movement. And I think I titled this session "Children's Ceremonies for Our Time," because we're all conscious that we're living in this time of where the whole world is under intense pressure, and we're living in this time of climate and ecological emergency, and it's really hard for us to imagine, isn't it, or it's quite what it must be like for children to be growing up with that knowledge of the yeah really the quite dire state of things on the planet and time. So could you say a little bit about how you see the children's forest movement, yeah, how you kind of see the necessity of it, how you see the value of it, how you perceive the need for it at this time.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the project really has emerged out of a really strong feeling of there needing, like very much needing to be a positive vision for children, for a beautiful and positive world that we could and can help co-create. And to offer young people and all of us, in fact, this possibility that we need to envision that. We need to imagine that possibility that our
Yeah,
world can be healthy and vibrant and clean and that as well as that, and the children being invited, in fact, to imagine that possibility with a direct, active engagement, purposeful action to
yeah,
create that, which is in the
yeah,
planting of the forests.
yeah,
So, you know, we don't want to give them false hope, but we want to offer them this opportunity to dream into a healthy possibility and create it, and
yeah,
actively put trees in the ground and actively do so with positive vision.
yeah,
And really, a lot of it as well is um, a, just trying to find the right words for it. A to offer people and humans and children of the humans this remembering that our species can be a very beneficial species in this planet.
yeah,
You know, it's really important for us all of any age, and
yeah,
particularly for young children, to understand we have a choice as a species to
yeah,
be really beneficial. We can
yeah,
actually help the ecosystem by our actions and choices. We can
yeah,
actually help create flourishing biodiversity. We can help increase habitat for different animals. We can, help clean rivers. We as a species, almost more than any other species, have got that ability to create enormous change
yeah,
for the benefit of life. And
yeah,
of course, indigenous people, including our own in these Celtic lands, would have lived constantly in a way that had this reciprocal relationship. And this reciprocity, I feel absolutely sure, and I can see it in the children, it's absolutely natural. So
yeah,
when we harvest the berries, from the trees, we plant them as well.
yeah,
When we harvest the roots, we plant the seeds of those plants. When we hunt the deer, we hunt the weakest so that we help the herd be strengthened. So part of this, or to say, loss of reciprocal relationship has arisen because we've lost those very direct relationships um, of gathering and hunting with the
yeah,
with the rest of the species,
yeah,
and so we now have to consciously bring that back.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I hope that answers the question. I feel I couldn't think of anything more needed at the moment
yeah,
than for human beings to understand we can actually make a really positive difference
yeah,
to the world and help
yeah,
the world be healthy.
yeah. I love how you said that. That does answer again. That does answer the question. Thank you, Anna, really beautifully. And I love how you said the word remembering. So
Mm.
becoming members again of the circle of life.
Yeah,
Also, I thought of it as you said it as like remembering becoming part of the body again. Reattaching ourselves, and yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And the
Yeah.
incredible thing that we'll all see with children is, you know, it's so instinctive
Yeah.
to feel part of the earth and to
Yeah.
understand that reciprocity, if given the right kind of environment to do that.
Yeah.
It naturally emerges out of them, and that is such a joy to see. You
Yeah.
know, which is again why we need to give all of our young people the nature connection, the remembrance of connection to the earth and to nature. That is vital before we do any positive action or envisioning. We need
Yeah.
to have that time to feel our place in it all again and realize
Yeah.
how well it makes us feel. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Anna, it's been so beautiful to speak with you, and yeah, just to hear you, yeah, talk with all the love and passion that you bring to this work, and yeah, love and compassion, and yeah, gentle wisdom. And it's I'm sure that everyone listening just will love the idea of, you know, what they're hearing about that, and will love to hear that more and more children are going to be offered this opportunity to
Mm.
participate and remember their place in the world, their yeah, through this movement.
Mm.
As you say, it started last year with the first plantings. You've got how many plantings coming up in
So
this?
we've got
We've got,
seven coming up this autumn.
yeah, yeah, and then more in the spring,
Yeah,
and
yeah, more in the
yeah,
spring.
yeah,
And yeah, and starting to do some training also with
yeah,
so we've got our first training this autumn as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
so that we can work with facilitators to be able to go and do the plantings with their children's groups. And
yeah,
so it's a very exciting time. It feels very exciting to be part of
yeah,
something so hopeful and
yeah.
hopefully helpful, truly helpful
Yes,
to the earth. I mean,
yeah,
that's the other part of it, is that, you know, the greatest prayer and wish is for this to be truly beneficial
yeah,
for us as well, and all nature as well. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, I just want to say, just on a few sort of practical notes, there's a link actually embedded in the sort of title of this event and broadcast. There's a link embedded to the Children's Forest Facebook page, but I'll also post on this page a link to the Children's Forest's website, and to the book as well, which isn't they have a very similar title, and they obviously have a, you know, a shared journey, but they're not identical things. It's
Oh,
not quite a book
it
of the
might
week.
be worth explaining that actually, that
Yeah,
the Children's Forest book was being written as a celebration of nature and working with children, especially through the 8 festivals of the year. So there's
yes,
story and song, as River said, and celebrations or simple ceremonies to work with children.
yeah,
But it was really during the writing of that book that the Children's
mm,
Forest tree planting project
yeah,
really became a
yeah,
crystallized idea. So if you look in the book, you'll see on the front cover and on the back cover, there's something written there about, you know, let us together plant the children's forest. Um,
yes,
but the book itself doesn't pertain to, in a
yeah,
way, what the project's about. So
yeah,
that's another book that's coming, just to say.
yeah,
So
yeah. I'm really loving as well. as we've been speaking, I'm just sort of getting a sense of how these few live broadcasts that we've been doing from this page are kind of weaving together. So you're talking about the seasonal celebrations, which we were discussing last time with Dave and Kerry, and this business about finding ways to respond ceremonially to the time we're in. We had a discussion about that with Harriet of the Radical Joy movement, inspired by the work of Trebe Johnson. And all of these broadcasts are going to stay up as little films on the page, so you can dip into these other chats if you want to. And if anyone joined us, well, I know some people have kind of joined us halfway through the chat. If you want to catch up with the bits you missed, the film's going to stay up. But also, talking about the journey of the seasons kind of leads us neatly towards the end, because we are coming towards the end of our chat now. And I've just seen my battery's running low, so I'm just going to quickly plug in to make sure we don't disappear mid-broadcast. But yes, it's so funny how you so quickly evolve a tradition, isn't it? We have evolved the tradition already with these School of Celebrancy live broadcasts that we finish with a blessing of some sort, or a little moment that we can share in together. So we have this sense of just coming together and sharing a moment of real connection and nourishment. And so, Anna, you have something prepared for us for the coming autumn equinox. I mean, of course it's spring equinox in some places, but we're autumn equinox here is approaching.
Well, I would love to just share with you a little imaginary journey that is in the Children's Forest book. So this is something we do with the children around the fire. So you could just take a little moment if you wanted to close your eyes and just imagine being in the forest this time of year, and just imagine smelling the smell of the forest floor, feeling that cool breeze, the rustling of the leaves, and the leaves just starting very slightly to turn golden, preparing for the sunset of the year. The birds are busy, and the squirrels and the mice starting to gather their seeds. So just going to guide you on a little journey into the magical forest realms. And I'd like you to imagine before you in this forest the roots of the hugest tree you have ever seen. And as you look up this trunk, you can see that the tree is reaching up into the sky. And it is full of life and so beautiful to behold. Animals are grazing beneath the tree. Deer and the squirrels. And as you look up, you can see birds and animals and insects of all sizes and colours flying and moving, singing and humming in the branches. The branches reach up past the darting swallows, the singing skylarks, and in the high sky are circling buzzards. And through the clouds, the tree continues to grow, and the highest leaves are touching the stars. You walk towards the tree and feel underneath your hands the rough bark beneath your fingers, and notice that there is an opening in the huge roots. Go through this opening and you find yourself on a dimly lit path leading to a stairway made of roots spiraling down into the earth. You follow this stairway down and down. You feel safe and guided, and you can smell the cool, damp earth and feel it with your fingers on the wall as you pass. And beneath the roots of this great tree, you arrive in a cave, and this is the Cave of Dreams. It's a sacred place. There is a pool of crystal clear water in the cave, and the pool contains a gift just for you. Looking into the water, you hear a message, or you can reach into that water and receive the gift that the Cave of Dreams is giving you. Give thanks for your gift and ask if there is anything for you to give in return. And it is time now to start climbing back up the stairs of the great tree's roots. Up, up, and up. And then you step through the opening into the light. You turn once more to look at the great tree before you go. It lives inside you. This is the tree of life. Breathe in its beauty, its life and magic, to take with you into the darker time of year. Breathe out and share your life breath with the tree. Open your eyes gently and feel your own roots reaching deep into the earth beneath you, and stretch your arms up, reaching to the stars.
Oh, thank you, Anna. That was just beautiful. It was really lovely. Thank you so much for joining me. I was thinking about playing a little bit of music at the end, but I think I'll just post a little film on the page that kind of just seems to fit really well with that beautiful meditation. Oh, hello, Thomas. Nice to see another one of the School of Celebrity students with us. Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. Thank you, everyone who has been with us this evening. And thank you, too, to everyone that shares this wider and joins us later. And yeah, it was, I'm sure there was many other things that we could have discussed tonight had we had more time, so perhaps we'll have you back again here, Anna, when we get the studio really properly nicely set up with, you know, proper lighting and not my face in the half shadow and not loads of thumping and bumping in the background and things like that. I hope that didn't
We should do it in the forest with the leaves and
yeah,
birds and
that'd be perfect.
the running
Yeah,
streams.
yeah.
Oh, thank you so
So
much for inviting me to come and share with you this evening. And it's lovely to be part of this. And I can't see anybody, so it feels funny to connect in this way. But I just want to send blessings and deepest and warmest wishes to everyone who's been listening. And may we all just really hold a bright vision for the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go well, everyone. Bright blessings to all around.